Thank you all so much for your patience today with the box office. We're a little bit short-staffed, but we made it work, and all of you lovely people are here, and I'm super excited about that. My name is Beandrea July. I'm a film programmer here at the Archive, and welcome to the Billy Wilder Theater. This is the fifth night in our six-part series, The Devil Finds Work, James Baldwin's Cinema of the Mind. The series is a curated selection of films analyzed by Baldwin in his seminal 1976 book, The Devil Finds Work. Each evening pairs film screenings with a live dramatic reading from the book with the hopes of opening up dialogue between cinematic images and Baldwin's trenchant insights as a film critic and essayist. The program is one of many tributes around the world to Baldwin as we close out his centennial birth year this month. Tonight, we're showing the original cut of The Exorcist, released in 1973. We're projecting a DCP. The runtime is 2 hours and 2 minutes. Also, we're going to be doing a closed caption tonight for our hearing and hearing impaired guests. So if you're wondering why are there subtitles, that's why. Tonight's dramatic reading after the film, excerpted from The Devil Finds Work, of course, is entitled, For I Have Seen the Devil. We are honored to have actors Nic Ashe and Justice Smith here to share Baldwin's words. There will be a talk back afterward with Nic and Justice, so you'll definitely want to stick around for that. A little bit of housekeeping. This free screening, like all of our year-round programming, is made possible by the generosity of an anonymous donor and our partners here at the Hammer. A special thanks to the community partners for this series, the UCLA Department of English, as well as Platform UCLA. I want to thank the incredible archive staff, our incredible theater manager, Lauren Brown, and our projectionist, Alex Blevin, in the booth. So we've got one more night in this series, and it's on Friday, August 15th. You saw The Slap with Sidney Poitier, and we're going to be doing a live reading with three people, poet and filmmaker Raven Jackson, as well as actors Kendall Wimbush, who some of you have seen multiple times now, as well as Mark Antony, who was here on opening night. So we're going to have a little reunion. You're welcome to take photos or video before or after the screening, but please refrain during the films. And also, please silence your phones and put away your devices of all kinds. If you'd like to share your experience, you can tag us at UCLA FTV Archive on social media. And you're also invited to subscribe to our newsletter, cinema.ucla.edu. And if you use Letterboxd in the film nerd community, you can log this film and say that you saw it here. It helps us kind of gauge how the program is landing for people. All right, so I want to tell you a couple things about the film. I'm sure many of you probably know this already, but this film had like wild production, and I'll get to that in a moment. A couple of months ago, I spent the day at the Schomburg Center in Harlem reading James Baldwin's papers, specifically those on his interest in film. The Schomburg acquired these materials from his family in 2017. One highlight was paging through an orange notebook containing the first draft of The Devil Finds Work. Seeing Baldwin's handwriting, his crossouts, and even paragraphs that never made it into the book was a pinch me moment for me. It reminded me that this timeless philosopher of humanity was not a god, but a working writer, wrestling with the page like any good writer does. Tonight's program brings Baldwin, the artist and the human being, through what he called the cinema of the mind, a concept sparked by childhood movie outings with his teacher, Bill Miller. Our film, The Exorcist, which premiered on December 26, 1973, obviously it's a Christmas movie, is one of the most influential and infamous works in horror cinema. Adapted by William Peter Blatty from his best-selling novel and directed by William Friedkin, it follows the demonic possession of Regan McNeil and the two priests determined to save her. The production became almost as legendary as the film, early in shooting, a fire destroyed much of the McNeil home set, sparing only Regan's bedroom, and it took 6 weeks to rebuild. There were multiple cast and crew injuries. Both Ellen Burstyn, mother, and Linda Blair. Regan sustained lasting back problems. A crew member lost a toe. A carpenter severed his thumb. Um, the shoot was also shadowed by seemingly unrelated deaths offset, which led to rumors that the film was cursed. And 9 people connected to the film died during production, including actor Jack McGowan, who passed away after completing his work on the film as Burke Dennings. Friedkin later said, "I am not a convert to the occult, but after all I've seen on this film, I definitely believe in demonic possession." Upon release, The Exorcist shocked audiences with its intense realism, Dick Smith's groundbreaking makeup, and innovations in animatronics and sound design were both features. It became one of the decade's top grossing films, and it became the first horror film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, earning a total of 10 nominations. And it remains one of the few horror films that's enshrined in the National Film Registry in the Library of Congress. Baldwin finished The Devil Finds Work in 1975 in July at his home in south of France, and The Exorcist had been out for about 2 years at that time. It became the book's title track. The Devil in The Devil Finds Work comes from The Exorcist. He writes, "The Exorcist has absolutely nothing going for it except Satan, who is certainly the star." Just really excited to have this experience with you all tonight, and have Baldwin conjure the American cinema in a way that only he can. So I'll see you back here for the talk back, and enjoy the film. Nic Ashe began his career at age 10 in the national tour of Broadway's The Lion King, and he has originated roles in Terrell Alvin McCraney's Choir Boy in 2013, and most recently, We Are Gathered at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., which I actually was privileged to see, and he slayed. On television, he's best known for playing Micah West on the Ava DuVernay-owned family drama Queen Sugar, where he was a series regular for 7 seasons. And Justice Smith is a graduate of Orange County School of the Arts. His breakout year came a couple years later with the film Paper Towns in 2015, and his role as Ezekiel Figaro in Netflix's The Get Down. Since then, he has appeared in over a dozen films and TV shows. His recent credits include I Saw the TV Glow, the American Society of Magical Negroes, and the forthcoming Jesse Eisenberg star, Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Also, yesterday's his birthday, so let's wish him a happy birthday. So where do we start with this? My God.
You're going to die up there.
I know, Justice, that you, when I was going out to people saying, do you want to read, Nic had shared that this is your favorite film.
This is one of my favorite films, yeah.
And so you've seen it many times, I assume.
I actually haven't seen it in a minute. When we read the excerpt, I had forgotten that she was an actress. Like, that's such a part of the story. But so it had been a minute since I'd seen it. But yeah, it is one of my favorite films.
Do you remember the first time you saw it?
No, I don't remember the first time I saw it. But I have like a poster in like German in my office. Is it in German or something? Like Ukrainian or something? Yeah. Like it's like a old Exorcist poster. I remember I think it was in my early 20s when I first saw it. And I just remember being traumatized by the scene with the crucifix. Me and my sister being traumatized by that scene. But the reason why I fell in love with it is because I think we were talking a bit before we read the excerpt about how we presume that James Baldwin saw a lot of the theatrics as camp. There was a lot of hysterics to the way that the devil is represented in the movie. But what I love about this movie so much is that there's so much silence in between all all of the performative demonics or whatever. So it really kind of grounds all that levitating and head spinning and stuff. I mean, that's the reason why it haunted me and why it stayed with me.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, because it's very spare in the score, right? Like all the the animatronics and the special effects that is so loud, right? So that's actually a beautiful choice to keep that silence. Nick, what's your relationship to the film?
I think I first saw this when I was like still in my single digits. And I remember it being very funny to my family. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess when you like, been through some stuff, like it's hard to like shake you. But I just remember quoting some of those more vulgar moments in the bedroom. Like when I think about the film, those are the only moments that I think about. And then to watch it tonight and see that I forgot about that prologue, that long moment that we spend in Iraq and we're like looking through the ruins. I had forgotten so much of that. But I think that this is the first time I've seen this film in over a decade. Like it's definitely blurry to me. But this, this kind of falls into the collection of like, I remember the original It with Tim Curry and Candyman. Like, I don't know why. Where were my parents? I was just watching a lot of spooky stuff as a kid.
Yeah. Actually, my mom told me a story that my sister and I were being babysat, and when she came home, we were watching this movie, and my sister was crying and like rolled up in a ball on the side of the room, and I was staring, laughing. So, I don't know what that says about me, but it does track our personality differences. I'm curious, just as actors, were there any sort of choices that you noticed and or admired? And if you had to play one of the characters in the movie, who were you drawn to?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I'm having a Mandela effect, but Max van Sydow, the actor who plays the older priest, is actually a young man when he shot this movie, and that's all makeup, right? Right. I mean, that is incredible acting there, because, I mean, just in his physicality and the way that he, like, embodies age, embodies weariness. I mean, that's impressive to me.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that, so yeah.
Also, shout out to the makeup team, because he looks like he's genuinely in his, 60s, 70s?
Right, yeah.
Shout out to the mom. She was going through all of it and stressed and said, why won't you answer the phone? Like, I've been waiting 20 minutes. So I love that. I always resonate with female characters a little bit more for some reason. But in this rewatch, I really was like, I would love to tackle Demi. I feel like he goes through so much. And my friend Dimitri is here, and he really enjoys this film as well. And he pointed out, how we hear him very early in the film talk about how he thinks he's lost his faith, and through this exorcism, regains it. And contending with the devil, he has to contend with the fact that there is something equal and opposite that. So I thought that was really profound.
Yeah. I mean, how much do you love Ellen Bernstein? I mean, she's incredible. Yeah, just truly. And Linda Blair, my God, they put that girl through the ringer.
Yeah. I remember seeing an interview where she was just talking about, like, I was just having fun, like, thrashing around.
And, obviously she's doing all the crazy possession stuff, but there's so much subtlety and sweetness in those early performances. They have like a 5-minute scene of them just talking in bed before she goes to bed, and I was just infatuated with everything she was doing.
Yeah, the director just stays on her, which I love. Like, they don't even cut to the mother's coverage. Yeah. They just stay on her, and you see how, like, good their relationship is. Even when she's kind of like she's stealing the cookie, like she's lashing out or whatever. Like, they have such a loving relationship. And then you forget that, like, because it's the voice is dubbed over, this like demonic Satan voice is dubbed over, but she's on set, like, saying all those things and making those facial expressions, like embodying this old demon, like this old masculine demon. Like, that's really impressive for a child.
What were the child actor rules then? Like, is mom on the other side, like, good job, baby, yes. Do the tongue thing, do it. Like what is that?
No, she's doing crazy shit.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So, just switching gears a little bit. So, what is your relationship to Baldwin generally? Nick, I know you told me that you first encountered Baldwin when you were doing Choir Boy Terrell's play, and your castmates sort of introduced you to him, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was doing a play with Big Brother Almighty, Terrell McCraney, in New York, and I was, 16 or 17. I was getting ready to leave high school, and I remember that I was doing some combination of like homeschooling and going to actual school and going to rehearsal. And there came a point where it was like, hey, we have performances. You can either go to your graduation or go to prom. So my mom was like, you're going to that graduation. Like, you're going to get your diploma and walk on the stage and do the whole shebang. So I did that. But the cast of Choir Boy threw me this sort of like makeshift prom and gifted me some 20 books that I devoured in like 6 months. And that stack included Fire Next Time and Giovanni's Room, which just like cracked my head open. I think that was like right on time because I was newly contending with what it meant to be black and gay. And here was this ancestor like so fiercely articulating what I could never. I was just like, I've certainly felt that in my bones before, but could never name or place it. And he was just spot on. So from then, I think I'd combed through everything he'd published within a couple of years. And I think that he lives on. I sort of walk through life inviting ancestors with me, and I often, it's sort of like unfortunate and fascinating that so much of what he shared in his lifetime is still so prescient and relevant.
Right. Right. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship to Baldwin, Justice?
Yeah, my relationship with Baldwin actually started at the same time as my relationship with Nick, because he's the one who he gifted me Giovanni's Room and Fire Next Time when we first started dating, like 6 years ago. And I devoured Giovanni's Room, but I still have not gotten around to Fire Next Time. Don't judge me. Although I hear it's incredible. Besides that, like I'm just a fan of like his interviews. Like I just rewatched his conversation with Maya Angelou,
Giovanni.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Giovanni.
Yeah.
Girl.
About men and women's roles.
Maya Angelou. You remember that interview he did with Maya
Well,
Angelou?
he had a relationship with Maya, though. They were friends, too, so that's not too far off.
Okay, good. Where he talks about homosexuality, she asks him to say his quote where he talks about how homosexual is not a noun; it can be a verb. It's beautiful. I don't want to butcher it, but yeah. So that's like kind of the extent of my relationship with him.
Yeah, and then to bring the two things together, you read this excerpt. I was kind of just thinking, Baldwin's take on it is more his offense at their portrayal of the devil, right? It's not necessarily a takedown of the movie. He does a fair amount of plot summary, all in service of being able to like make this argument about their misread of the devil, right? So I guess I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Do you was there anything that sort of stood out to you as you read? Any passages, thoughts you had, or reactions you had internally when you were reading?
Yeah, we had like a nice discussion right after we had read the excerpt that you sent, and you can kind of like tag team this, but Justice kind of brought up the point about, how sometimes we as humans can really vilify another human being to distance us from our capacity to behave that way and do that. And I think that's what Baldwin is calling out. I love what he says about like the devil he knows is much more subtle than what it was in this film. And I felt that as a kid watching it, that this was something that was absolutely ridiculous. But as I've grown, and if you live in this city, you certainly walk around and you see phantasmagoria and absolute weirdness and wickedness, So that was kind of the first reaction that I had, that he was spot on with this being sort of exaggerated.
Yeah, I felt like it really triggered something in him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were. Sorry, I was trying to find this exact quote, but I can't seem to find it. But he kind of basically says like the devil and the things that really perturbed him about the film is kind of like how it made him confront his own soul, right, and like his own upbringing, growing up as a preacher's son, right, as a pastor's son. And so I do think the film was effective on him, even though he does have this criticism about like, the subtlety of devilry or whatever. But I also think like subtlety is a lot like hot sauce, where it's like everyone's threshold for it is different, and so it's kind of hard to say like this is, because to me like that, like I said before, the histrionics of the devilry in this like is subtle in the context of the film, like I mean versus like what we have today with all of the lights and colors and stuff of like all these blockbuster movies that we see today. But what I really like about the quote I wanted to mention in this is how, and Nick touched on this, is how he talks about like my darkness sees your darkness, and if we all could just acknowledge that we have that devil within, then maybe we could find peace with one another. We can inhabit the world together and find harmony. And I really like that aspect, because I think that's something that I mention all the time. You know, like that our inner devil is a part of our humanity, our larger humanity.
Right.
You know,
Have you read the Screw Tape Letters? Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Justice can
by
talk more
C.S.
about
Lewis.
this. Anybody familiar with those Screw Tape Letters? Tough crowd.
Give us a little, tell us what you're thinking.
No, it's just about, it's a C.S. Lewis book. It's one of my favorite books. It's about the devil's right-hand man writing letters to his nephew on how to corrupt humanity. And it's like a satire, essentially. And each chapter is a different letter to Wormwood, I think his nephew's name is, about all of these things, about how to steer the man that he like lives on the shoulder of, like how to steer him away from God and Christianity, and like and it's really nuanced, because it doesn't necessarily just be like, oh, like make sure he avoids every church. It's like, oh, if he is like Christian, like make him like hyper intellectualize things. And one of my favorite quotes from it, you know, because I'm not necessarily a religious person, so that stuff is interesting but doesn't really resonate. But one of my favorite quotes in it, and I'm going to butcher it, it talks about the best way to corrupt man is to make him constantly hyperanalyze himself to the point where he is oblivious to the things that a stranger or his lover or his mother could name in an instant, his issues in an instant. But he is so concerned with like every little thing that he does that he's not able to actually tackle the problem. I don't know how that's related to this, but maybe it's like maybe it's related in the sense that it's another form of this kind of darkness that we inhabit, you know, because I know I deal with that in terms of like anxiety, and anxiety is a level of darkness that you kind of have to accept in order to let the light also exist in yourself.
I think it's directly related as the devilry, I don't even know what that's about, but the devilry.
Deviled eggs.
Right, the deviled eggs that James Baldwin was talking about, like you said, is in his mirror. So there is a sort of like introspection as far as the devil is concerned for him. So I think that's spot on.
Yeah,
That
it's like
quote.
an inner cycling. Yeah, I think that is. Yeah,
It's really interesting. I'm going to have to go look that book up.
it's such a good book.
We're going to take questions, brief comments, but questions prioritized. And a mic will come to you if you raise your hand. There's one down here in the middle. Thank you, Lauren.
Hey, you guys are both incredible actors, and you're also remarkable filmmakers. So as filmmakers and lifelong fans of horror, I want to know if, while you were watching the movie this time around, if there were any moments on a craft level that really inspired you.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being redundant when I say like the use of silence was like, and not just like quieter moments, but like there are moments in which he just removes all sound. Like in the beginning when like they're walking through the dunes or whatever, and he sees that large devilish statue. Like you only hear his footsteps. Like you don't hear the wind. You don't hear like any sort of brush or anything. You know, you just hear his footsteps walking. I think that was really powerful.
Yeah, the sound was so compelling. Also, there was a lot of like juxtaposition that I really liked. And I think something that's happening in horror and thrillers is like we're overly dependent on the jump scare. And these didn't even feel like jump scares. They felt like they were really supporting the story, the drive of it. So always loved where the camera was and what it was immediately paired with to get us into the next moment. You know, you sort of feel the film is doing this for like the first hour, and then those storylines kind of intersect so beautifully. It's really rewarding.
Also, the flash of the face.
Yes,
That
was
is one of my
spooky.
favorite moments in cinema.
forgot
It's
about
so
that.
good.
Like, ah,
That flash of that face. It's like 2 times and then it's done.
yeah.
Goodness. I have a question over here, and then we can come over here. No, she's got it. We just got new mics, so
Oh, okay. Oh, that works. I wanted to ask about the film's relation to more of a liberal relation to like how they treat children. And I noticed within just all kind of media, we've kind of moved in a more delicate direction to the point where like if you play a video game, you can't kill a child. It's actually like not possible in any video game that's made in the United States. And seeing like the juxtaposition between her like coming in and like stabbing her own crotch. How do you feel about how we relate to children in film and media, and should we would you like a return to a more liberal kind of freed version of that, or the more conservative kind of careful space that we're in now?
I have so many thoughts about this. I wrote an essay in high school about children in horror movies specifically, and how they came about. Like one of the first films that like had like a kind of not a demonic child, but a troubled child was called The Bad Seed, and it was kind of like the bad seed effect, right?
someone here was talking about that the other night.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it all of these like films, like The Omen, The Exorcist, any film where it's like a small child is behaving like horribly, it all like the reason why these films were so popular is because at the time there was like a lot of fear from parents that their children were going to rebel from them, and like The Bad Seed specifically had this like had an alternate ending to what it actually was released with, where the parent like ends the movie like spanking like the actress playing the bad seed in order to just like lighten the mood, because parents were so like disturbed by like this child getting away with this. Anyways, all this to say, I don't know if any of this answers your question. I just really am passionate about like the representation of children like in horror cinema, because I think it's like preying on this like subconscious thing of like how like older generations are fearful of younger generations rebelling in some way. I think that's really interesting.
As a recovering child actor, I think that child actors are oftentimes underestimated, and as a result, they end up being underdeveloped in the projects that they're involved in. I will say that there are some really stunning examples that have kind of slipped through the cracks. Did anybody see Bring Her Back recently?
Oh yeah.
2025
That was
release.
really
That
good.
child actor was given a lot to do, a lot of violence, I think it was the first horror film I've seen in years that made me. He's the guy that covers his eyes. Okay, I'm like leaned in like this, but it was the first one that I just couldn't look at the screen for what that child actor had to do. And we also just rewatched Us, and what Jordan Peele got those actors to do, those young actors to
That
do, was
little girl in
really,
Us
she
is
was
so
tapped
good.
into some dark sided stuff. So I think it's like, directors really trusting their talent, creating a safe space for them and their parents to, unearth something that could be a little bit haunting. But when it's done well, I'm thinking of Sixth Sense and stuff like that. Like, I think it is really moving and creepy. I haven't seen Weapons yet, but that little trailer with the boy like looking like, I don't know. I think I do want to continue to see more of it for sure, and for young black actors too. Like, it don't got to be the creepy little, yeah.
I do think that it's smart that, I mean, this is the last thing I'll say about this, it's smart that as a culture we've moved away towards allowing child actors to do anything that's kind of sexual in nature, like in this film. That I think is, I mean, yeah, I think that's too far. I don't know why we still allow them to do violent things, but I do think like. Do you know that one movie that Brooke Shields did when she was like 14?
Oh yeah, and she talks
She's like
about
fully
how
nude.
traumatized she was.
There were so many like back in the day they didn't care about that shit, and I think that it's actually better that we don't hypersexualize children in that way. Even if it would be technically more effective or more haunting, I think you can find a more creative way to do it.
That's true. And to that point, I know that Linda Blair faced a lot of stuff after this film came out with death threats and, like, am I making this up?
Oh no, I'm
Oh,
just like
okay.
I never understand why people do that. But
Oh yeah, like have such sense, like thinking she was actually evil or possessed like that. Like sometimes the line is blurred, but I think on the sets I've been on the projects I've worked on, there's like a added element that is like considered of mental wellness, especially for the child actor to not walk away scarred or carrying any of the stuff they're portraying. Yeah.
Okay,
We
someone's got the mic, and then we'll come over here.
Okay, thank you guys. First of all, thank you all for your presence and your commentary and your analysis. It's amazing. Thank you. The one comment I have, which I'll keep very brief, and many people here, since this is a film event, probably know, the casting of Max von Sydow in this movie is brilliant, given that he, I believe, played chess with death in The Seventh Seal by Ingmar Bergman. Like, yeah. So that was really cool. I was very curious to hear what you all were going to read from Baldwin, because whenever I am confronted or examine his work, I try to think about it in a contemporary context. There's a line during the exorcism where he says, and I'm paraphrasing, the devil doesn't present himself as the devil. And in the excerpt that you read, Baldwin asks us to sort of consider our own relationship to evil. Given what you read, given what the film showed, given Baldwin's sort of, I think, commentary that, and I'm just going to make it plain because I'm thinking of other films, in movies where evil is examined, specifically as it relates to race, if the characters are of a certain race and a certain socioeconomic status, they deal with the evil, they get through it, they move on with their lives. Others, who are different from those characters, still have to kind of relive that nightmare every day. I guess my question is, given where we are today politically and the comment that I referenced that the character makes, how do you guys feel this film references our political situation and where we are in the world today?
Racially.
Culturally, with race as a part of that.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like how much the mother has to do to be believed. It made me think about like the Medicare system and how much you have to go through to say, no, my arm hurts when I do this. And they're like, oh, just take this and you'll be fine. Like how much she's dismissed just makes me think about how often that happens. And, women, men, everybody is just sort of misdiagnosed or dismissed when they come in with genuine concerns about how their body is not acting the way it, normally does or the way that they would like it to. So I think that's like a little line that I can draw.
Yeah, I don't think it's I definitely think that it's on purpose that there's like such a large male presence around her when she's trying to get help, and they're all with larger words basically just saying that she's crazy and you should you should just get her admitted. So I think that's a statement for its time. I do love what you pointed out about like kind of like this rich white family like dealing with this devil, and then at the end they kind of just like pack it all up and then they move on. And what Baldwin talks about in this excerpt is about, like, you know, evil in the eyes of the cop, like as a black man in America, like facing this evil every day and knowing what real evil looks like because you are labeled as evil. I thought that was really powerful. I don't know how intentional, like, I definitely think that I don't think there's any sort of like intentional statement about race in the movie, but I definitely think that there's one to take away.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about faith, the loss of faith. You know, I feel like church numbers are dwindling. There's just generally this vibe from my generation, especially, that's like, you know, I'm more spiritual. I'm not really observing a discipline of faith or observing a religion. And I think that moment of like, I just don't know if I believe, really speaks to now, you know? And that's a huge generalization. But I'm actually working on a project that is talking about that intersection of queerness and faith specifically, and how those things can actually exist harmoniously. And it's just, I've heard so many stories, and, you know, in my friend group alone, that's just more like, I'd rather look up my astrology than like go sit in a church, you know, no, with no judgment. I'm just saying that's what it is. So I think, again, that's another line that I can draw.
Did you still want to ask a question? He was in line here, down here. Yeah.
I have a weird connection with this film because it was actually shot by my cousin, and my parents took me to a pre-screening before it was ever released. And I remember my mother at the end, it was funny, we were coming home, and she was talking how political the film was, because it was 73, right after McGovern completely got destroyed by Nixon. One thing they always said about Nixon was like what the priest says, you know, he lies all the time, but sometimes he'll put a little bit of truth in with the lie. Wow. And my mom said, that's a politician for you. And like, then she kind of turned to me and also said, and her, because I was the same age as Reagan, saying like, he acted just like any adolescent I've ever met too. I was wondering what you thought about the political, you know, of those lines and things like that. Thank you.
I'll just say really quick. Did you say your cousin was a cinematographer? Oh, wow. Okay.
That's really cool.
And your comments made me think. I for some reason I zeroed in on, there was a picture of Harry Truman on the wall, which I just found interesting. I don't know, because that wasn't even that era that they were in. That was not the time period, but apparently she had an affection for Truman. Right. Yeah. And it's in Washington D.C. Yeah.
That's, I mean, y'all nailed it.
I also think that, yeah, you answered his question too. You drew a political line there.
And Baldwin, actually, when I went to the archive, one of the things I read was a correspondence between Bergman and Baldwin, because he wanted Bergman to direct this script that he had written. And it's actually like a really funny, awesome back and forth, because, you know, Bergman lived on this island when he was on vacation, and he was like impossible to reach. So he didn't write him back for like a long time, and Baldwin thought he had, you know, rejected him or whatever, but he really just didn't get the note. Anyway, he has a whole, I love that line in there about Bergman, like, because he obviously esteems him so much.
Like, if he had written it, maybe the film would have went somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, we'll make this the last question over here. Sorry.
Hi. I was just wondering, because it seems like in this passage that you guys read, it's the very end of the book.
Right.
And he introduces it by talking about the black church. And I was just curious if there was anything in the Orange Notebooks where there seems to be a connection, I think, between Baldwin's critical comments, where he really feels like this obsession with the trappings of the supernatural and ritual and so forth is avoiding the issue of what real actual evil looks like in the way that people treat each other, and the way that the cop and the authoritarian treats other people. And there's a connection there to The Fire Next Time, in that I think it really shows Baldwin's. In both of these cases, it seems like Baldwin was reflecting on why he left the church.
Right.
And when he says in that passage, if we lose our, we must be careful not to lose our faith lest we become possessed. If I was wondering if there was anything in the Orange Notebooks, or if just what you think, what sort of faith Baldwin thinks should take the place of the religious trappings that he has so little patience for.
Right. Yeah. On Friday night, we kind of got into this a little bit. On Friday night, I don't even remember what the movie was. Someone out here probably does. Yes, Tales of Manhattan. And so basically, my read of it, and this is just, my read of it, is he, in Tales of Manhattan, in that reading, he draws this parallel between the theater and film, and theater being this like active spiritual thing, and then also the premise of this whole thing, cinema of my mind, it's sort of what I took away from the book was this idea of like cinema as God or as spirituality. And if you watch his biography, his American Masters biography, which I believe you can get on Canopy, we showed it here opening night, he has this quote where he says, I had to leave the church to become a minister, and I think that culture and art and movies in particular just had a really big impact on him and helped him become who he became. So I recommend reading that passage in the book where he talks about how he left the church, and it was because a friend of his invited him to a movie at the same time as the service, so he knew he would have to make a choice, and that was like the last time he went back to that church. He chose to go to the movie with his friend instead. But yeah, there's a lot there. Actually, I've been thinking like, oh, this would be a great dissertation. Not that I'm trying to go back to school, but but just a longer project, because I think one of the reasons I wanted to do this series is because very few people know that Baldwin wrote this stuff about film. Like he really thought very deeply about cinema. And to quote Angelica Jade Bastien, a critic at Vulture, he's like one of the best film critics out there, I think, and I agree with her. So I think I'm rambling at this point, but I will say just finally that what struck me about the reading and what, I don't know, I felt like he was holding back, which is like, how dare you say that, but in the Black church, I grew up in the Black church, there's this song by the Clark sisters, Dorinda Clark, called Everything the Devil Stole, God's Given It Back to Me. Which is actually kind of a bop. I love gospel music, but I'm spiritual but not religious, but I love gospel music from my ancestors. And in the Black church, there's this active relationship with the devil, right? It's not so much of like, it's spooky and like he moves beds, but it's like, if we try to pretend the devil isn't there, then we're got, And it's like the devil is a liar, We plead the blood. What did this line they said? The blood of Christ compels us. That was really powerful when they kept saying that. But yeah, so it's like, it's not, and I think Baldwin talks about this. It's not this like distant, spooky devil of the film, but it's like this sort of person who, if you don't put a boundary there, if you're not on your, your walk or whatever, your spiritual walk, you can succumb. And so I feel like he touches a little bit on that, but there's probably more. That's why I said I felt like he got triggered, because I felt like there was something subtle about he wasn't fully going into it.
Yeah, in that passage that you read, he talks about like how he was grappling with his past and the future of his existence. I forget how he words it. The maze of his
labyrinth of his destiny.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a lot for this film to do to you. So I feel the same way.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess I'll end by saying, just to bring it back to the whole Hollywood of it all, of since you want to play Max Seidel's character and you want to play Demi's character, my pitch, just putting it out into the universe, is that this is actually a film I think would be great to reboot. I generally am not a big fan of those, but I think this film, because of it's
Didn't they just
They
try
did, yeah.
with
It
Leslie
wasn't
Odom
good.
Jr.?
It was not good.
Oh well, I didn't even know
Oh
about
my
that.
We love
Um,
Leslie.
Of course.
No, it's okay. Well, I guess I
They
did
did,
not.
and they were like, "What if instead of one little girl, it's two little girls?"
Oh no.
Yeah,
I will say, to bring it back to this, that's crazy. And they were twins.
And they were twins.
To bring it back to this political piece, I feel that horror movies can hold so much more. They can be campy. They can be on the nose. They can show life in its full violence and supernatural ways that we sometimes shy away from. We try to deliver like this cookie cutter literal version. And Justice, in addition to being an amazing actor, is also a director. He's just directed his first film that uses horror as like an allegory for like some commentary on race and on that. So I don't know. I just want to bring that up if you want to talk about that
Yeah, if there's
a
anything
little
you
bit.
want to promote or talk
Yeah.
about, this is our.
So my
ending,
Instagram
so-
is, and my Twitter is, yeah. I mean, I don't really know how to really correlate this, but yeah, I did just direct a short film about a horror comedy that is a racial satire, and I made this one my star. And yeah, I mean, this is why I love this genre, is because I think it really it allows you to shed defenses, and I think like comedy, you can really like drive home, needle in a powerful message, and without people being the wiser. There's always like I always mention this dynamic that Shakespeare. I feel so pretentious bringing up Shakespeare. That Shakespeare talks about in Habits, where he like will write his plays so that it can reach like the people in the stands, but also reach the groundlings. So like he'll like have like such beautiful prose, and then he'll like throw in a dick joke. And I feel like horror as a genre is kind of like that, where it's like, well, I think genre film in general is kind of like that, where it has on its face like all of this stuff that like draws you in, like as like just like a draws you in, like draws in your humanity, like your base, like how do I word this? They say like comedy and horror are two of the easiest genres because it's really easy to make someone laugh, and it's really easy to make someone afraid. It's our carnal feelings. And that's what I feel about like genre films, is that they draw you in to your carnal nature. But then they have the liberty, they have the capacity to like also make you think, to also affect you spiritually, or to make you reflect on your past and your present and your future, like Baldwin grappled with. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily affronted by, levitating young girls and head spinning and green puke, because I do think that there is like, I don't think the film would work if it's just like a reflection on motherhood and religion and faith. I think that the reason why we love film is because it excites us, as well as makes us think. I think it has to hit us in the brain and in the gut.
And I think it's easy now from a 2025 lens to not have it hit as hard, but you have to remember the context of when that came out. People weren't doing that.
Yeah.
It was very new and groundbreaking. So I have to not look upon it with my 2025 eyes.
But it still holds up. I don't know. It
Yeah.
still holds up. I think if you showed a little 7-year-old girl this, she would be hiding under the bed
I
for a
don't think
couple
we
weeks.
should show this to
We
children.
just said the children actors.
I don't
Protect
know.
the babies.
Every parent can decide what's right for their child. Okay. Any last words before I close?
I learned so much from just I want to ask y'all questions because apparently y'all know more stuff than I.
We have a great crew of audience
Yeah,
that
it's
comes here.
great. I learned stuff just from the questions, and so I'm really happy that I got to be here.
Yeah, and I just want to say it's so brilliant of you to program this, to unearth this text and pair it with the films. Just like brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Truly.
Thank you. That's nice. I mean, as I told you, it's really selfish. I just wanted to do it for myself, and I hoped other people would come, and you did. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you all for being here. And this series closes on Friday, so I hope to see you back. And thank you for all. I see you multiple attenders out here. I appreciate you so much. Yeah. So have a good evening.
Good night.